You know, we spend a lot of time trying to follow the smart money. But what if you could look directly inside the playbook of one of the biggest investors on the planet? What if you could see right now exactly where billions of dollars are flowing? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do.
So the question is, what is the world's largest, most secretive hedge fund doing with its money? We're talking about Bridgewater Associates. They manage over $120 billion. So when they make a move, you better believe the rest of the world sits up and pays attention. And what we found is a massive, game-changing pivot that signals something huge is on the horizon.
So here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to get to know the man behind the machine, Ray Dalio. Then we'll dive into his core philosophy, the thing that makes it all tick. And then, the main event. We'll look at the massive shift in his portfolio, what he's buying, why he's going all in on AI, and why he just completely bailed on China. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the single biggest takeaway you need to know.
Okay, so to really get what's happening with the money, you first have to understand the mind that's calling the shots. And that mind belongs to the one and only Ray Dalio.
Dalio kicked off Bridgewater from his two-bedroom apartment, believe it or not, way back in 1975. And he built it into an absolute behemoth, a giant known for its almost robotic, data-driven approach. These guys don't guess. They build complex systems based on a super deep understanding of how the global economy actually works. They're so powerful, some people on Wall Street literally call them the other central bank.
So, what is this system? What's the secret sauce, the operating system that runs this multi-billion-dollar machine? Well, it all boils down to one single, really powerful idea.
It's called the all-weather portfolio. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's genius. Dalio isn't trying to predict the future. He thinks that's a fool's game. Instead, he built a strategy that's designed to survive and even do well, no matter what the economy decides to throw at it. It's about being resilient, not about having a crystal ball.
See, he views the economy as a machine that moves through 4 predictable seasons, all driven by debt and just, human nature. First, you get the expansion, the good times. Then, things overheat and you get inflation. After that, the central banks have to step in and cause a recession to cool things off. And finally, you get the really painful part, deleveraging, when the bill for all that debt finally comes due. For Dalio, knowing which season we're in, well, that's everything.
All right, so you've got the philosophy down. Now let's get to the big reveal. Because in the second quarter of 2025, Bridgewater didn't just make a few small adjustments, they completely rewired the entire machine.
The change is it's just crystal clear. They went all in on US artificial intelligence and, at the same time, completely got out of their major Chinese tech stocks. This is one of the most dramatic strategic pivots we have seen from a fund this size in years. And I'm not talking about a little trim here. This was a total house cleaning.
Just let that number sink in for a second. Over $1.1 billion gone, pulled completely out of China's biggest and best-known tech companies. I'm talking giants like Alibaba, Baidu, JD.com. One minute they're a core part of the portfolio, the next, poof, they vanished.
And that money didn't just go sit in a bank account. Nope. They took all that capital and then some and plowed over $2.16 billion into their absolute highest conviction bets in US tech. That's not just a pivot, that's a massive double down.
So where did all that cash end up? Well, it looks like a clear, unambiguous bet on a brand new economic cycle, one that Bridgewater clearly believes is going to be dominated by artificial intelligence.
Now, a lot of people might look at the AI boom and think, hey, isn't it a little overheated, a little too late? But Dalio's own principles tell a totally different story. He famously says you should never bet against strong momentum. His system is screaming at him that this isn't just some fad, it's a fundamental shift. And this trend has a long, long way to go.
And just look at the sheer scale of these bets. I mean, they didn't just buy a few shares to test the waters. They cranked up their Nvidia holdings by 154%. Microsoft up 112%. Alphabet up 84%. This is not dipping a toe in the water. This is a full-on cannonball into the deep end of the AI pool.
Okay, so that's the in pile. Now let's talk about the other side of the trade. Why the sudden, total, complete exit from China? What is Dalio's machine seeing that maybe the rest of us are missing?
It comes right back to his core principles, his playbook. For Dalio, 2 of the most critical signals you have to watch are long-term debt cycles and rising geopolitical tensions. This move tells us he sees a major storm brewing in China, probably a painful debt cycle combined with some serious risks on the world stage. And for an all-weather investor, that's a flashing red light telling you to get out of the way.
And you have to remember, this wasn't some knee-jerk reaction. For years, Dalio was famously one of China's biggest cheerleaders. But his framework is built to adapt to new information. He started raising red flags about U.S.-China tensions in 2024, and by 2025, his system was clearly telling him the risk just wasn't worth the reward anymore. The machine adapted to the data.
So, after we've deconstructed all these massive moves, what's the bottom line? What's the one single thing you should take away from this huge repositioning by the world's biggest hedge fund?
Okay, here it is laid out plain and simple. Bridgewater is out of China. They've pivoted and pivoted hard into US AI. But you have to remember, this isn't just about picking hot stocks. For a guy like Dalio, this is a top-down macroeconomic bet. His economic machine is signaling that the fundamental gears of the global economy are shifting, away from one global power and toward a new technological cycle led by another.
And that leaves all of us with one final, pretty provocative thought. Ray Dalio, using a system that he has spent nearly 50 years perfecting, is positioning billions and billions of dollars for what he sees as a new world order. So the real question is, have you even started thinking about yours?